Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. Bob Pompeani with you here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. We always take your phone calls and opinions at 412-575-2600. Steelers have begun their in-person interviews. Brian Flores was in town today, a man who has a very long resume as a good defensive coordinator. His teams in Minnesota this season ended really well. He was one of the top 10 defenses in the NFL, and if you break it down, one of the best against the pass as the year went on. Their problem wasn't on defense, it was on offense, where they continued to look for answers also at the quarterback position. J.J. McCarthy up and down. But Flores has been here. He knows this franchise, spending 1 year with Mike Tomlin after he was fired in Miami. So he went through the process today. Tomorrow it's Mike McCarthy. And I'd like to hear from a lot of you out there about, who you like in this, because obviously Flores is a defensive guy. Many on the list are defensive guys. McCarthy, a lot of people thought this might be just a courtesy interview. But, I mean, if you look at his offensive prowess over the years in terms of his teams, he's a very good offensive mind. Now, you got to find the right defensive guy if you bring him in. I'm sure he knows that, and I'm sure they know that. But if you look at his career in Green Bay with specifically Aaron Rodgers, and even in Dallas, he had a good quarterback in Dak Prescott. They put up big numbers. So he knows what he's doing offensively. And, the Steelers have not had a top 5 offense in over a decade, so they need help in that regard. And he could be that guy. Then after that, it's Anthony Weaver coming in here from Miami on Friday, and he's another defensive guy. Speaking of Miami, Mike McDaniel, who got fired there, looks to be the new offensive coordinator with the Chargers. I know that McDaniel had an interview with a lot of different teams. I think Philadelphia and Tampa Bay really liked him, but it looks like he's going to go there. And they have they're 2 tackles who are out for the year with injury. They're going to be back next year. They have Justin Herbert. Say what you will. He got banged up last year, and they have to figure out a way to keep him healthy. But I think that's a good situation for Mike McDaniel to go in as offensive coordinator. And after that, we're going to find out when they can talk to Chris Shula or Nathan Shieldhouse. Those guys are both tied up with their game this weekend against Seattle. 412-575-2600. Andrew Fillipponi has up at 93.7 The Fan. So these interviews now have begun. There were 7 virtual, now the first of many in person. And, I would think at some point maybe the Steelers wanted to kind of move this process along, but I know they want to be thorough with it. So, number one, what is most likely the timeline before they announce a coach, and how many more do you expect, and who would you consider to be your favorite right now?
Yeah, great questions, Bob. I mean, I heard Adam Schefter say today that Art Rooney, too, had a scheduled trip this weekend that might have delayed this a little bit, which I found interesting. You're scheduling a trip during the NFL playoffs. Did he think that the Steelers were not going to be playing this past weekend? He said that, Adam Schefter, on TV and radio today. I do think they're going to wait on these Rams guys, at least you would think they would, based on their level of interest, what was reported about Shula before the season even ended. And look, right now you're down to Baltimore and Buffalo as the 2 jobs that are probably better than yours. And do you think that the guys that are on your radar are on theirs? I think Buffalo is going to go with an offensive coach. I don't think they're pushing Sean McDermott out to go with another defensive guy, so that would take Chris Shula off the board. And Baltimore has interviewed Brian Flores. Brian Flores, among the available teams that are left, he's really only interviewed for the Ravens and Steelers job, and the Ravens have interviewed like 20 guys. So I do think they'll take their time relative to what maybe other teams have done. And I would think at the earliest they wait until these coaches that are still in the championship round become available and get a chance to talk to them before making their ultimate decision. I look at what's happening right now, Bob, as like these are the semifinalists for the job. And once they do this interview, then we get to maybe the final 2 or 3 that have a chance to be the Steelers' next coach.
That's typically how it goes, yes. And our KDKA.com/Connect poll of the night brought to you by Penn West University. Do you think the Steelers will hire Brian Flores? Yes or no? Let us know what you think. Also, of those jobs you mentioned, interesting, both have franchise quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. If you were to pick one of those teams you would like to have, if you were a head coach and you hypothetically were offered both, which would you take? Because to me, it would be Buffalo.
Well, I don't think it's even close. The Ravens right now, I mean, we don't even know what Lamar Jackson's future holds.
Correct.
In Baltimore. He wants a contract extension. Things obviously went off the rails between him and John Harbaugh. I think that was an issue going into this season, whether it was Harbaugh specifically or the coaches working underneath him. There was a fissure there. There was a schism there between himself and the coaches. All right, so to me, if I took the Baltimore job, I'm not even sure that Lamar Jackson is 100% all in on being the quarterback. You know that's the case in Buffalo. And look, I mean, let's be honest. Josh Allen did not play a good game against Denver. He did a good job of getting them back into the game, but the full 60 minutes was not good. Overall, though, he's been a much better playoff performer than Lamar Jackson to this point in his career. So I'd rather bet on Josh Allen to get it done and get over the hump than Lamar Jackson, Bob.
Plus, he seldom misses time, whereas Jackson has been injured quite a bit throughout the course of his career. 412-575-2600. Penguins made a trade today, and they also won a game last night. They head now to Calgary and Edmonton, and they're right now right in the middle of things, in fact, approaching the top of their division. We'll get into that and your calls about the Steelers, Penguins, whatever you want to talk about, maybe even the Pirates. Can they finally sign a third baseman? One still waiting out there. Is there any chance Eugenio Suarez comes to Pittsburgh? We'll get into that and more as we continue right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. All right, welcome back. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night. Comes from Aaron Torres, who says, random tweet that probably no one cares about but me. If you're old enough to remember Ray Allen playing at UConn, that's who Malik Thomas is at Arkansas in 2026.
Wow.
Star in the making. And I watched his game tonight against Vanderbilt, and they look really good in this game. John Calipari's team is ranked 20th, I believe.
Yeah.
And boy, they came right out of the gate and they were hitting threes all over the place, and Thomas led the way.
I'm going to say this about college basketball. Obviously, people haven't been paying attention. The teams here are not. I was actually at the St. Louis Duquesne game tonight.
I was going to go there, and I knew St. Louis is highly thought of, and what happened?
Bob, tonight was the first time in that arena's history since it was renovated that a ranked team played there against Duquesne. And they came in with a guy named Robbie Avila from St. Louis who has the nickname Cream, spelled C-R-E-A-M, Abdul-Jabbar. Larry Blur is another nickname. He is a very fun player to watch with his big goggles. And St. Louis won, and it was a very competitive game. Duquesne actually had a chance late to come back and tie the game and possibly win the game. But if you've not been paying attention to college basketball, Arkansas and John Calipari is very similar to how he was at Kentucky the last few years. They could very easily go to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. They could also lose in the first round.
Right.
I mean, they are a sporadic team. They are an erratic team. They're high on talent, but they're young. And so they make a lot of mistakes. But also, if they put it together on a given night, they can literally beat anybody in America. So they're going to be an intriguing team to watch once we get closer to the NCAA tournament.
And you're correct about how Calipari was in Kentucky, too. He had a lot of talent, always young guys. And one of the reasons why they didn't win more there in the postseason was because of that youth, I think, and then they end up going to the NBA. All right, 412-575-2600. A lot of calls. We'll get to them right now, beginning with our number one Cochran Go One Better caller of the night. Raphael in Fox Chapel is first tonight. Rafi, what's going on?
Hey. Nothing much, Bob. Thanks for having me on the show. Mm-hmm. I was listening to you guys talk Sunday night about, some of, cleaning house with some of the older players. And you guys were going down the line with, TJ Watt and Cam and Ramsey. If they don't clean house completely, personnel-wise, I think Mike McCarthy would be one of those candidates I would look at to having the experience and have a more of a win now this year and maybe next year kind of attitude. If they're looking to clean house, then I like Flores to be a coach, hopefully like Mike, like Bill Cowher for 15 years. Those are my top two guys.
Wow. I'm surprised by that because I'm still going with the youth movement there. I think it's going to be Shula. And as I said, it's probably unlikely that Shieldhouse will come with him. But if you can set that up, I would like something like that. He hasn't called plays before, Shieldhouse, but he's certainly capable, I think, based on his strategy and what he does for Sean McVay over there. But I would look at it that way. McCarthy, boy, he knows offense. I don't think there's any disputing that. But his teams, if you don't have a star quarterback, and that's another hurdle for him if he comes here, who is your quarterback? What do they do? He has a relationship with Aaron Rodgers. Would he come back because of that?
I think so. Yeah, you know, I think if you, like, let me just say this. I think if we had no knowledge, okay, so Bob Pompeani's on the air tonight with me, and we don't know that the Steelers have a pattern, a history of Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. And we don't know that they hire young defensive coordinators to be head coach. So we don't have that knowledge at all. It's a blank slate. And we're just trying to predict who the Steelers are going to hire. Without that piece of information, I think a lot of us would say, you might say Mike McCarthy, because he's got a proven track record. He's one of the few offensive coaches who's out there. He's made quarterbacks better. And Art Rooney said last Wednesday, he's not looking to take a step back. He's not looking to rebuild. He's not looking at any of those things. And he also gave Mike Tomlin credit for keeping them competitive. Well, Mike McCarthy has shown that he can do those things, Bob. He's also from here, and he loves the Steelers organization. So all I'm saying is, if I didn't think the Steelers had a type, okay? If I didn't know that they like defensive coaches in their 30s, I would say that Mike McCarthy makes a lot of sense for them based on everything else I know about them as an organization right now.
Yeah, but I do think they want to move forward with a younger guy. I still think they're going to stick to that. And listen, Mike McCarthy's had a tremendous career. He's won a Super Bowl. He did it against the Steelers. He's had some really good
who's the
teams.
young offensive guy, Bob? Who's the young offensive mind? If I say to you, they got to find a quarterback. Okay, so if I say they got to find a quarterback and develop a quarterback, your pick Shieldhouse, right? That's what you would go with? Is that right?
I mean,
you pick Shieldhouse?
But you also have Tom Arth, who's still a guy who worked with the quarterbacks this year on Mike's staff. He has relationship with some of these guys. I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow
Yeah, but
comes
I'm
back.
not fair enough. But if you're saying to me they got to find and develop a quarterback, I'm not trusting Tom Arth to be the guy that does that. Okay, he's a position coach for a reason. He's not a former head coach. He's not a former coordinator. If the whole goal here is to find a quarterback and develop a quarterback, look, I'm fine with Chris Shula, but what about Chris Shula makes you or me think he can do that, Bob? Nothing. He's got zero in his resume.
You're right, but you don't know that either. And McCarthy may not even get the quarterback that he wants here. It may take a while.
I understand
for that to happen.
that.
So if they want to win now,
but if it's okay, but I'm saying, who do you trust more to develop a quarterback, Chris Shula or Mike McCarthy?
Well, I think
I would have to say McCarthy, right? I mean, you have to.
Yes, I mean he's done it.
Yes,
I get that. But I also think they are, the way they've gone is they like to bring in younger guys who have potentially
and that's what I just said
ahead of them.
That's what I said. Based on the past experiences, you would say they skew younger. But if we didn't know that was their preference, what makes Chris Shula a better candidate for the job than Mike McCarthy, other than the fact that he's younger? Give me an argument besides younger. I don't think there is a good one.
What I would say is that Shula will hire someone who will do that. That's part of the whole coaching philosophy. You bring in other guys who can do other parts that he may not be the best at doing. McCarthy would have to lean on defense. Dallas's defense stunk under Mike McCarthy. That's why he got fired. So it's the same concept. You could be a good head coach and develop whoever. Dak Prescott didn't need to be developed. He was already developed. My point is, if you have a guy who's a defensive guy as a head coach, you bring in that other guy who can do it on the other side. So I mean, you can go in one of a number of ways.
I get what you're saying, but if you're tracking out and forecasting the Steelers, what's more important right now? Finding a guy that's going to get something out of the defense, what you just said McCarthy failed at in Dallas, and you're right, or finding someone who can develop a quarterback. The quarterback thing's way more important, is it not?
Absolutely. But you're making it like even if Shula comes in, he won't have anybody in place to do that. He may very well.
But we don't. But my point is, we know what Mike McCarthy is as a quarterback coach. We don't know what Chris Shula is. We don't even know if he can hire Shieldhouse.
Right.
We don't.
I know.
That's a mystery.
There are a lot of ifs out there.
McCarthy's a proven commodity, Bob, and it's not a bad proven commodity with quarterbacks. Is all I'm trying to say.
I'm not saying that, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got the job.
Well, some people are. I'm not arguing that you are, but there's this whole anti-Mike McCarthy out there, and all I'm pushing back on is he has shown that he can get a lot out of offenses and quarterbacks. So why would we be opposed to him here other than the age thing?
Let's go out to Carl and see what he has to say. Carl's in West Mifflin. I think he wants to talk about McCarthy as well. Go ahead, Carl.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Yeah, I think McCarthy would be the best choice because he's a Pittsburgh native, and I think Aaron Rodgers would come back to play for McCarthy. But on the other hand, do you think the Steelers will move up to get a quarterback?
It's too far to go up, and there's not enough quarterbacks that I see who are worthy of that at this point. So no, the answer would be no.
There's one guy.
That doesn't mean you can't find somebody, but it's a highly unlikely that that person would come in here and would be the starting quarterback. With regard to Aaron Rodgers, I think if you look back at this experience here, Andrew, you'd say to yourself, it was a pretty good experience for the Steelers. Those players in that locker room really liked him. I think they learned a lot from him. He was not the kind of person that I think a lot of people thought he was when he came here. What he didn't do was win a big game, and that's not necessarily all his fault. But he is 43. He doesn't have a mobility situation like he used to have.
No.
So that's why I think they're moving on beyond Aaron Rodgers. But if McCarthy's hired, then that may bring that back into play. So we got to take a break here on that note. Hang on. We'll come back with more of your thoughts. And you can call 412-575-2600 right here, KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. We continue after this short break. All right, we're back. 412-575-2600. Let's really quick go out to John and Cranberry, who's our next caller here, Andrew. John, go ahead.
Hey, Bob and Andrew, I'll make it quick. I also wanted to talk college hoops quickly. Pitt is 8-10. They have home losses to Quinnipiac and Hofstra. They're second to last.
They just got blown out by Louisville, too, at home. Jeez.
Yeah. Has time taken its course? Is Jeff Capel going to remain with Pitt, or will this be his last season? Thanks for taking my call.
That's an interesting question. You would think based on the results that they would move on and make some sort of change here, but I don't know if that's forthcoming. I also don't know the details of a buyout and what that would be, Andrew. But man, they're not moving forward at this point.
He's got those 3 big recruits for next year, but recruits that are freshmen mean less and less in college basketball because the way the sport has evolved. And John Calipari said it again tonight. Why should we try to develop freshmen when you can just go get guys out of the G League or Europe? He makes a great point.
He really does.
I'm with him on that.
I agree with him. One other note, the Penguins acquired a defenseman today from Colorado, Ilya Solovyov, and he's exchanged for Valtteri Kustanen.
What was his name?
Solovyov. The thing about him, he actually played on an Avalanche team that is 32-8. He's got plenty of ice time. He's 25. I don't have a problem with that necessarily. We'll see where it takes him. Because Dubas has been good on a lot of his trades. All right.
Bob, you've been good on everything. Thank you.
And as are you, Andrew. And we're out of time. I wish we had more. Call us again tomorrow night and every night. Andrew, we'll see you up at 93.7 The Fan. Good night. We'll talk to you again tomorrow night right here.